let's talk a little bit about if Black Desert is a dead game. Because I think there's a lot of people who are out and about saying Black Desert is a dead game. And I've seen this many times. They do it in New World. They do it in a lot of different online games. There's always the people who are out there saying, oh, it's a dead game. And I think that the major point I want to make is that we live in a time where there's lots of content creators, there's lots of chatter on social media, and when you think about playing a game, the first thing you probably do is you go see what do the content creators say about it, what do reviews say about it, what do other people in online communities say about it. And the reality is, quite often, your experience in a game is going to be very different from what you read about when other people who are vocal about it have something to say. So, yeah, sometimes bad reviews just mean it's a bad game, totally. But it's also totally possible that negative feedback feeds off of itself. And when a bunch of people start to say things like, well, it's a dead game, there's different reasons for why that may be the case. And in some cases, in my experience so far, what it appears is that many of the people who will tell you that the game is dead are people who spent a lot of time in the game already. So you'll have someone that maybe put 10,000 hours into the game, and then they'll say, well, the game is dead. Maybe the game is dead by their standards because they have spent so much time in game that they've exhausted all of the new content and it's become stale for them. Or maybe in the extreme end game, they feel like there's not enough content or there's not enough players that meet their criteria of stimulating. But that does not mean that a new player can't log in, have a good experience, and discover that there's plenty of people to chat with, to get to know, to make friends in the game, to feel like you're part of a community if you want to join a guild. There's a difference between a truly dead game where like there's nobody playing it at all, and it's you're logging into a server of 0 or 5 people globally or something ridiculous like that, and a game that is not dead, just, you know, maybe it has a lower population than it has had in the past. I don't know. And I haven't looked into it too deeply, but another thing that I think is very overrated is the fact that typically with MMOs, what happens is people look at Steam numbers and they see, well, here's the Steam population, but with a game like Black Desert or many others, there's also a standalone launcher, and probably a majority of players will choose the standalone launcher from the website of the developer rather than the Steam client version. And so when you look at Steam numbers, it really is not indicative of how many players are actually playing the game. But what I would say about Black Desert Online is there's new classes like the Dosa, which I thought was pretty cool, and I just jumped into the game and made a character with that because I really liked it. We have the Land of the Morning Light, and that's a pretty new zone that has been released just recently. So what I would say is developers aren't making new content and updating their roadmap continually for something if it's totally dead, doesn't make any money, no one's playing it anymore. That's just not how it works. So typically when people say it's dead, what they're really saying is there's something about it that they don't like, and it hasn't gone their way, or they got burned out because they spent too much time in the game and they got burned out. It's all something like that. But I think it's important to take time to make up your own mind, your own decision. because you might find that if you're open-minded, you will reach a conclusion that's pretty different from what a lot of people are saying. And it doesn't cost a lot to do that, especially with a game like Black Desert Online. Probably $5 on a Steam sale and you can get the game. Maybe $10, I don't know. But it's not going to cost very much. You get the game and you aren't going to hit a paywall. You can spend many hours exploring the entire world in the game, doing all of the quests, learning about the game a little bit at a time. And it's a very deep, complicated world to get your head around. So the fact that you can get many hours of entertainment out of this game and you can do it for the low cost of $5 or $10, I think it's worth it. I think it's worth it to give it a try. And truthfully, now I can't speak to the end game. I don't know how it all goes in the end. What I do know is that I have enjoyed my time in Black Desert Online so far somewhat more than I enjoyed my time in Throne and Liberty. Now I may go back to Throne and Liberty and play it some more because I do like that game. I think it's pretty cool. But my initial thought was, it seems like Black Desert Online has more content to offer than Throne and Liberty. Both seem like they are good games. I like them both. And Throne and Liberty is a game which you can start off playing without paying any money at all, which is pretty phenomenal. But overall, I feel like, I played Throne and Liberty till about level 30, and then I switched over to Black Desert Online, decided to give it another try, and I've really enjoyed it. Actually, I canceled all of my subscriptions to games like Lord of the Rings Online, Elder Scrolls Online, just because I wanted to simplify and play games that I don't have to pay $15 a month to play, and kind of just see how that goes. And overall, the more I give Black Desert a chance and actually play it with an open mind and have a relaxed approach to the game, learn a little bit at a time, the more I start to reach the conclusion that it's a really incredible MMO. And I think it's hard to get into it because it does have a learning curve. It does have a different play style than typical MMOs. And that turns off some people. But I think if you stick with it, it is an acquired taste. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a game that is for everyone. I don't think it is. But I also think that there's a lot too much talk about how it's a dead game. And it is not a dead game. It's maybe a game that frustrates some people, maybe a game that's burned out a lot of people, and perhaps a game with lower population numbers than what it would have had at its peak. But you know what? That can also be true for most MMOs, where players who have been around for a long time will have something negative to say about the game. There's a lot of people who are burned out. There's lower population numbers just because MMOs are kind of a niche. They're not something that is the first go-to thing for every player out there. There probably was a time when MMOs were a bigger deal, but now, like, MMOs have a very active and perhaps the most loyal community of any games on the market, but they are ultimately a niche within gaming. So it's not a surprise to see that population numbers for MMOs are not necessarily extremely high, but that does not mean that the games are dead, because people continue to play them every day. And the nice thing about BDO is, even if the population numbers are low, you don't really need to group up with players to enjoy the content. And I think that really comes down to, you know, what is your gameplay philosophy? If you want to just quest and gather things a little bit and sell things on the market a little bit and just be present in the world, then you're gonna be just fine. Not gonna be any problems or concerns. It's when you're really a try hard, really competitive, and you're judging it more from probably a end game PvP perspective that you will become frustrated and feel like the game is not maybe living up to expectations. In any case, I would definitely recommend giving it a try. And I think in general, even if we're not talking about Black Desert Online exclusively, anytime there's word on the street that a game is dead, if it looks like it's interesting, I would say give it a try, and don't necessarily fall for writing things off just because a content creator or people on the internet have said that it's not worth it. Make up your own mind, and then you might be pleasantly surprised. As always, good luck on your adventure. Till next time, thanks for watching.